Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. We're going to be taking a look at the Cosmic Brushes Delicious Delights palette. Cosmic Brushes is a independently owned brand out of the United Kingdom, and they just released the Delicious Delights palette. This was actually up for grabs starting on June 23rd. You can actually still purchase the palette now. I just received this like last week, but I was camping, so I wasn't able to like test this out. It was actually on more of like a pre-order, and you could buy just this palette. You could buy this palette and also the Serenity palette and the Muse palette. So you could buy all three of these together and you could purchase them for a grand whopping total of $82 USD if you wanted to try all three palettes from Cosmic Brushes, which is what I did. More coming on those two palettes, but for this one, let's just take a look at the Delicious Delights palette. So the Delicious Delights palette is a 20 color eyeshadow palette with 6 metallic shimmers, 14 mattes, and 3 of the shimmers that are a duochrome formula. One of the duochromes is an iridescent duochrome and one is a high shine foil multichrome. Create soft, dreamy pastel looks or go vibrant with stunning electric shades. The Delicious Delights palette does retail for $34 USD, and you can buy it the siblings, which comes with Delicious Delights Muse and the Serenity palette for $85 USD plus shipping and handling. Now, I used Angelica Nikvist's code, which is Anjeshka, and it got me a percentage off. The Delicious Delights palette, just this palette, is currently sold out on the Cosmic Brushes site. So you could buy it when it's in bundle form, or you could buy it, obviously, when it comes back in stock. 20 shades, beautiful foils and mattes in here with a either like super pastel or super vibrant color story. And I love that you can actually mix and like you could do just an all pastel look, or you could do just like something a little bit more vibrant with like pastels thrown in there. So they did a great job with the color story. Let's get into my eyeshadow tutorial, and then we're going to take a look at some comparison palettes that came to mind when I pulled this palette out and see how it compares to some other brands as well. Okay, so let's get into this Delicious Delights palette. I'm so excited. This is my first purchase from Cosmic Brushes. It has a full-size mirror, and here are the beautiful shades that come with it. Upon first impression, it has a mixture. It has a mixture of some deeper tones, but then it also has a mixture of pastels. And I actually really like the combination of colors in this because there's some pastel palettes that I have that are all pastel-y. While beautiful, very hard to work with sometimes because you do need some deeper shades to darken up an eyeshadow look. We're going to ignore my nails because I will be doing my nails later, so ignore the nails. But we're going to be using, in Angelica Nikvist's fashion, we're going to use my Cinch Beauty brushes. Go figure. We're using Cinch Beauty brushes today. For all my eyeshadow looks, if I'm using the same brush, I will be using my Sigma Switch with my Cinema Secrets spray. So if you guys see me using the same brush, that's what I do. I'm going to pick up Milkshake, which is this shade right here. My eyes just creased all of a sudden. I do have a primer on, but I mean, they creased, so that's just what happens, right? Make sure you don't have any creases in your eyes. We're going to use Milkshake with the EO3 from Singe. This is just a super, very, very like pastel. I'm actually not going to tap it off this time because it just did not build the color the way that I was expecting. It's pretty. It goes on very like wash of color. And it is kind of like a pastel purple shade. It's doing its job. It's just a very light wash of color. So it does build up pretty well. I mean, it's decently pigmented on my face. I don't expect it to be like super pigmented the first time that I put it on, only because like it's a pastel shade. It's not going to build up the way you want it to. I'm going to use a Singe EO2. I love this brush for like the outer corner and then also getting into the crease because it's so like detailed. And we're going to use Charms. This is a very dark purple shade. I was very curious about this shade because a lot of people were not, like, when Angelica Nikvist received hers and did her review, it actually arrived broken. And I was like, oh, I really hope mine doesn't arrive broken because that would be super sad. I love deep dark purple shades, and I like testing out purple shades in an eyeshadow formula because purples, if you've watched me before, I've said this a million times, purples are a very, very hard formula to create. Has just something to do with like the pigments. If you're familiar with like color theory and how you create purple, it's blue and red, and that's really how it's made. So if you don't have a really good eyeshadow formula, your purples are really hard to get to blend. Pastel shades are a little bit easier because they blend away to nothing sometimes, so building them up. But like these deeper hues of purple can be really hard to create. So we're just building this up on the inner corner. I started kind of bringing it in just a little bit, shading in on the inner corner as well, but we're not getting like right on the lid. It's just kind of flowing into the crease. And what I'm doing is packing this in and like tap, tap, tapping. And then I will kind of go through with a clean EO3 and just like blend everything together. So I'm going to take the EO3 that I used and we're just going to like blend all of these colors together. Now I want to use that multi-chrome shade. It is this one over here called Sprinkles. It does like it's so hard to tell when you're looking in the camera, but it does do like an orange to green to pink shift. I think it'll be really pretty, like right across the lid. And I'm just going to see, very flaky, but I'm going to see how this applies with just like packing it on the lid without anything on this side. And I'm using a Singe Beauty EO1. This is my favorite inner corner brush, and how I'm just like tapping, tap, 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 tap to kind of load the brush because it was a little bit flaky upon first application. Oh, that's really pretty though. I think Sprinkles is a fitting name for this shade because it is like sprinkles can be a plethora of different shades from purple to pink to blue, like especially if you get like the rainbow sprinkles. I want ice cream because I'm putting sprinkles on my face. That is really pretty because it even has like a pink to a green to a purple shift in it. That's really pretty, and it's pretty pigmented the way that it's going on. Again, I don't have any kind of like glitter primer on my eyes right now, which that's fine because sometimes you just don't need it. And I wanted to see how it applied without a glitter primer. I'm just gonna take my powder brush and slowly sweep away the fallout. So yeah, it did really just like create a lot of fallout on this eye only because I like plopped it on. So keep that in mind. I'm taking a different powder brush and I'm just kind of stippling away the pigment on my face because it did really spread. So very pretty color. I really like it. I am going to use an EO4 from Singe. This is like my under eye like go-to. And we're going to just use this dark purple shade down here. I'm going to tap it off and I'm going to really connect the under portion of the eye to the outer corner. I like this brush because it makes it easy to even create, like if you want to do almost like a wing with your eyeshadow, which I like to do typically, it makes it easier to do it because it's such a flat but yet fluffy type of brush. Then I'm just going to use my beauty blender and tap away any weird spots, and it helps with the edges to do that. Now we're going to use again my EO1, and I'm going to use, wow, there's a lot of fallout in the pan in that. So we're going to use Delicious, which is this shade right here. I'm just going to pop this on the inner corner. It's like a purple shifty shade. I've seen this shade like in a few other palettes, like the Gourmand Girls one has one really, really similar to this. So it has like a white base, but it's like almost iridescent looking. And these typically shift from like a blue to a purple or a purple to a pink. This one is picking up more purple because of the purple eyeshadow. Very iridescent looking. It is pretty. It's just I've seen this before. So this is what the makeup is looking like. Now there is a matte white shade in here, which you could use to sort of highlight your brow bone as well. You could even lay down kind of like white if you wanted to. So I'm going to take my EO4 and we're going to use this on the upper brow bone. Just tap off a little bit, and then you could even use this to highlight with a matte shade up there. And this one is called Whipped Cream, which that is very fitting. So this is the eyeshadow look without mascara. I do not put on lashes. I don't have any like eyeliner on either. That's just, I'm a very simple makeup person. Put on my eyeshadow, put on my mascara, I'm good to go. So I'm gonna apply my mascara real quick and we will be right back. Here is the final makeup look with the Delicious Delights, one of them anyway. I did just recently purchase these like little things that let you, they're like eyes that are closed and you can do eyeshadow looks with them. So stay tuned for like almost a 3 looks 1 palette with this, but it won't be on my face. I did find like a little mannequin that has the same like look as me though, like skin tone, so stay tuned for that. But this is my completed look with the Delicious Delights palette, one of them anyway. Very purple, very like monochromatic. Obviously, you could go like so many ways with this. You could do very, very like detailed looks with this. You could do very pastel. You could do a little bit more colorful. But this is just my like monochromatic eyeshadow look with the Delicious Delights palette. So I pulled out a couple of different palettes that were kind of like reminisce of the Delicious Delights palette. If you guys want to see like a swatch comparison video, and I can pull out some possibly other looking palettes as well, leave me a comment down below and I can do a video like that. So we have Delicious Delights, and this is like a mix of pastel and like some more vibrant colors as well. And I absolutely love like the neon shades that you get in here as well. And I love that you get some like pastel blue and you get some poppy blue. So it does have a great variety in here. And I think that's what really spoke to me. Actually going through some of my other palettes, mostly the multi-chrome reminds me of the Wahala 2 palette. So Fake is like a very, very similar multi-chrome to the multi-chrome that's in Delicious Delights. And I feel like the packaging on the Wahala 2 palette is a little bit distracting. There are some similar shades in here, like with the blues and also with like possibly like the orange and like the blue, but overall this is more like a mix of pastel and vibrant colors, whereas this is more just like vibrant colors in general. And this one is very much more, to me, reminisce of the Natasha Denona like pastel palette. Like I'm wondering if this could be like a dupe for the pastel palette from Natasha Denona. And then the other palette that really came to mind was the Juvia's Place Garden by Juvia's. This is their version of a whole pastel palette. You can see there are very similar shades in between the two of them, but this one still offers more of those vibrant shades, whereas this one is very much like 100% pastel. It doesn't have that range of pastel and vibrant shades. I really feel like Delicious Delights is like pretty much just it's a rainbow palette with some pastel thrown in there. And then I wanted to pull out one that really reminds me of ice cream and still has that like ice cream, deliciousness food feel. And that would be the BH Cosmetics Cotton Candy palette. This is from their Sweet Shop collection. So this was their purple and pink palette. We aren't going to be spot on because this is only an 8-shade eyeshadow palette, whereas the Delicious Delights is literally a 20-shade eyeshadow palette. But I was like, oh, the pinks in here are very, very similar. So let's stack these. You get the pinks and the purples. So literally like these two rows are very similar to this one. The pinks and the purples you can compare, but obviously Delicious Delights has more of those shades in there. However, I really feel that if you were to pair like Garden by Juvia's with something like the Candy Shop that is that deeper like pinks and purples, you could possibly get a dupe for Delicious Delights out of that as well. Obviously, you're spending a little bit more money. I believe the Garden by Juvia's is like a $20 eyeshadow palette. This one is actually no longer available, but if you do have it, I brought it out for that comparison. And then another eyeshadow palette that did come to mind was this one from Tresluz Beauty. This is actually another new release. It is the Dolce Vita palette, a curated, colorful eyeshadow palette, and it is that like are we in the season of like creating eyeshadow palettes that are after, like dessert? I really am curious. But I was noticing that there are some really similar shades between this palette and the Delicious Delights palette as well. So we'll hold these two up so you guys can see as well. I feel like Delicious Delights has more of a like purple. It's like a very Very similar, but Delicious Delights is missing like this entire row up here. It does have some of these like shades down here, but overall, like it is similar. We could do, it's similar, but it's not quite the same. Those were just some eyeshadow palettes that I pulled out for you guys, and ones that I thought looked decently similar or had like a very similar like vibe with like the pastel shades in it. As you can tell, like obviously Delicious Delights offers, what makes this eyeshadow palette so appealing is that it offers the pastels with the other vibrant shades, whereas a lot of these other eyeshadow palettes that I pulled out, they don't have the pastels, or on the flip side, they have the pastels, but they don't have the vibrant shades. So it is a good curation, a good mix of vibrant shades, of pastel shades, of some like foily shades in here. And the foil shades can be, you know, they are pretty pigmented and dynamic, as you can see. The way that this palette has been curated, it's just that you typically do not find a pastel palette mixed with like such pigmented, vibrant colors. Usually, like I said, it's one or the other. Like you can't find both. So this is such a great, I feel like it's a great addition to my collection. I feel like, I can create some very like more neutral, like purpley pink looks, or I could go blue, or I could even go like minty green with it. But this is such a beautiful palette. I love how you can go a little bit deeper with that. With some of these other palettes that I did mention, you can only go one way or the other. You can't add dimension. Stay tuned for a actual swatch comparison video, because then I can show you guys like really get down into the nitty-gritty of like how similar these are to other pastel palettes, and we can see if we can find a dupe. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for staying tuned to this video. I hope you guys consider subscribing if you guys like seeing some in-depth eyeshadow like reviews like this and first impressions. Leave me a comment down below. I do have some other videos that feature some eyeshadow palettes with comparisons to other palettes that are on the market right now. And please consider subscribing. I hope I get to see you in my next video, and bye!